think I'm just after 7 o'clock here, but yeah, we're here. Life is good. As you can probably hear, I've got a little tiny bit of a, I don't even know what to call it, kids cold. The kids go to school and life happens. As you can see, I still have this nasty ass little beard going, unfortunately, still. That's just the sad reality right now. It's unfortunate. If anyone's here and getting the live notification, just let me know. Jump in the chat. Sometimes there's a bit of lag here, so apologies if you know when you're having an issue connecting. Hopefully it'll connect here. There we go. Okay, I see people jumping in now. For some reason it's connecting, so there we go. Now we're good. I am so close to shaving this bad boy off. I cannot wait. It is disgusting. But maybe I'll keep the mustache for November. Do a little, what do you get a little wax and curl it? Do a little November, a little my mustache in honor and tribute of. I guess he was one of the 3 people that kind of got me on this journey, and we're talking today about whatever you want to talk about. You put the questions in, and I just kind of answer them. But why isn't I was talking to my brother the other day, and it's interesting because philosophically speaking, my brother's we both grew up with terrible upbringings. Like, we were tossed around from house to house. We didn't live with the same parents. I lived with my mom's ex-boyfriend for like 5-6 years. Long story short, we had a terrible upbringing in poverty, like probably bottom 15% of how Canadian kids grow up, right? Like, I experienced the worst of it. And out of that, I was born with this, or sort of developed within me this hunger to want to be at the top and how to beat the game. And I realized that having no money and growing up in poverty and growing up with all of the issues and the drugs and all the problems that are, surround people in poverty, that the way out was to beat the game. And the game is money. Like, if you can get your money right, you basically win in this society. Like, if you have a few $1 billion, you've won the game. You basically can't get sick. Like, there's enough money, you can control anything. You have the freedom to do whatever you want with your entire life. My brother went the other way philosophically. He's a bit of a, not in a bad way, but he's a communist. Full on, he loves the Communist Manifesto. He's all about that life. I wouldn't even call him a socialist. He's not so much a leftist, though he gets grouped with leftists. I don't think he agrees on all the policy stuff around, like, the trans movement and whatever. Like, there's all this kind of stuff going around that, the left identify with as well. I think economically, he's a left, right? And economically speaking, I actually, like, socially, I'm pretty liberal. I think people should do whatever they want, to be honest. Like, I'm all for gay marriage. I'm all for, having social nets and safety stuff there for those who need. I'm all for most of the social issues. I tend to lean, a bit left, but economically speaking, I lean right. I believe that the government should stay out of our business beyond a basic social net. Like, I'm fine to pay some tax. I think paying some tax to society is good. I think there should be, in a better world, the wealthy people who pay all the tax. Because if you make less than 70 grand a year, you take more from Canada than you give, right? So the majority of people take more than they give. They use the healthcare system, costs them $7,000 to $8,000 a person in Canada, just in tax for the healthcare system alone. So if you're, if you're not paying like $30,000 a year in tax every single year, you're a net drain. Anyway, he leans left, and it's interesting when I have conversations with him. I think we just differ. We don't differ that there's problems in society. We agree there's inequality. We agree that there's a lot of issue in society. But where we differ is how to solve it. He's like, off with the heads of the wealthy, spread it around. I'm like, let's give everyone ladders. And yes, there's a social system at the bottom, but I guess it probably stems from his belief that, I guess, all things are equal. Like, if you're retarded and all you want to do, maybe you're not, either you're not capable or you don't want to be capable, and all you want to do is just sit at home and chill, you're of equal value to someone who's a high producer who just, saved 10 people from cancer. If you work 100 hours a week or 1 hour a week, it's the same. He doesn't care. Should all be the same pay. So there's no incentive to actually work in his system, and that's sort of my issue. But I think, this video I'm talking today about, why financial independence is totally doable for anyone. Like, literally anyone born in a first or second world country, especially a first world country. If you're born in like the UK, Australia, Canada, United States, anywhere, a lot of areas of Europe, a lot of areas in North American continents, even like places like I would call second world nations like China or India or Brazil, Right? And Russia is, I guess, arguably a first world nation, but there's some limitations there to growth, I think. But anyway, the point is, we've grown up, and you're in that society, which is pretty much my entire audience. All of you have the opportunity to be financially independent within 10 years. You put in 10 years of work, you follow a set of systems, you've created your own UBI. He's like, well, why doesn't the government just create UBI for everyone? And then I got thinking about that. He made some valid points. I'm like, UBI, universal basic income. Why can't there just be a UBI for everyone? Like, say, $2,000 a month. And I'm like, you know what? Like, for the bottom half of society, a UBI might make sense if there were strings attached and each person funded their own. And that's kind of when I came back. I'm like, why can't we have a system where the government forces you to save a third of whatever, 40%, let's say, of whatever you make. The government just takes it. You already pay 5% in CPP in Canada, 5% in EI, and 15, 20% in tax. What if we could just take 40% of someone's income, say there is no social net program, and we'll invest it for you. You can see the account. We're going to control what you can invest in. There's risk tolerance parameters. But you fund your own retirement. And all you do is just work 10 years and let it compound. If you work 10 years, save 40% of your income, and then compound that, by 60, 65, you've got multi-millions of dollars. As long as there's no poor management, which is, unfortunately, that's where I believe government shouldn't be involved in people's personal lives because they tend to fuck it up. They're not good at managing anything. Like, they build a freaking park bench. It costs the government $2 million. Private sector built that bench for 30 grand. Right? It's just ridiculous. And even 30 grand is insane. I'm talking about a decked out, like poured concrete, a couple of benches, whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, it just is ridiculous how much it costs, and there's so much inefficiency in public sector. But I think we agree in the sense that, it really makes sense for every human to have an opportunity. I grew up with not a lot of opportunity. I mean, I lived in Canada, so I had a plethora of opportunity, but I was in the bottom quarter of Canadians. I grew up with mold and rats, and I'd have a rat crawl in my bed when I'm sleeping. Most Canadians don't go through that. There was times where we went to the food bank, and it was very helpful to provide for us, right? And so growing up, having those social systems and realizing the importance of, having them there, but at the same time, it's interesting, I find, that the majority of people that grow up poor stay poor. Your greatest indicator of success at birth is the socio-caste economic status you're born into. That's a mindset issue. I'm living proof, right? But I also elevated my mindset, right? And that was a huge piece of it. It's tough. I think we need better education too. That's huge. Let's go to the Q&A for a sec. Let's go to the Q&A and see what's up. Raveen says, is it worth it to get a realtor license? Well, that depends. I've covered this before on the channel. My perspective hasn't changed a whole lot since I last covered it. And I think that, it depends on what you want to do with your license. So if you love serving clients, being a realtor is that. You're a self-employed, well, you're really employed by your clients. You're a slave to your clients in that sense. So a good realtor has to go pull comps, has to go look at dozens of houses for their clients, is up writing dozens of offers, only to get paid on one of them, right? So it's a lot of work. The average realtor makes 40 to 60 grand a year. You can make more. It is a flexible job in the sense that, like, you probably won't be working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but you might be working 12-hour days on holidays and 12-hour days on a Saturday and Sunday. So it's just a different lifestyle, right? Working as a realtor. Now, if you want to get your realtor license just to serve yourself and your friends and primarily yourself as an investor, that's where I get the question. A lot of people are like, hey, is it worth it? No. You could easily partner up with a local realtor and get access to all the same data. There's not very much more data now that isn't already publicized. Like, even there are apps like House Sigma where you can get comparable sales. So even the comparable sale data isn't great. When something gets listed on MLS, there's a couple hours where I get it before the public, like not even any lead times. There's nothing for deals that way. You could just call the realtors in the network. I mean, there's a group there's a group of realtors, like an association that you're part of, and there are deals that get posted there, exclusive or off market. That's valuable, but you can just pay a realtor to get access to that. Like, you can just ask him to scan that for you, or her to scan that for you and let you know when there's anything off market or exclusive. Really, it's about your network and your connections. That's more important than having the actual license. Now, the license itself costs $20,000 in your effort, another $10,000 in costs to have, another $6,000 in fees once you get set up, and then probably $6,000 to $12,000 a year in total fees, including your brokerage fees. So you've got to do a few deals a year just to justify your realtor license. So, I mean, I hate working for free. Just myself personally, I just don't like to do it. So being a realtor means working for free. The first few deals you do are just paying yourself back. So as a real estate investor, if you're only going to do 2 or 3 deals a year, go find a local realtor and say, hey, every time I buy a deal, kick me back 1%. I want you to cover my closing costs or give me 1% of the purchase price. Every time you buy a $500,000 house, I want $5,000 towards my closing costs or renovations, whatever. You can write it off and I get to split that commission with you. So now they're buying houses with you. You have someone else doing all the work for you, which by the way is worth 1%, 100%, doing all that paperwork. When you're a realtor, there's a lot more paperwork than just an offer. You have to track. Anyway, there's a lot more stuff you have to do. I'm not going to go into it here, but there's a lot of paperwork in the back end for a deal that you don't see as a client, right? And as soon as you're a realtor, now you have new regulation, you have new, let's see, it's better. You have new things that you have to deal with, and that's something that you don't have if you're not a realtor. So there's definitely pros to not being a realtor as a real estate investor. There's a lot more you can do in the sense that like you're not bound by any regulation, you're free to wholesale as you'd like, you're free to, anyway. So I think the realtor piece can make sense. I got it. I only got it after I'd done 50 deals. I was like, I just did 50 deals in an 18-month period. It's time to get my license. I'm doing way too much volume. At the time we were trying to grow, right? I'm not doing that many deals anymore. So I'll probably give up my realtor license at some point. Maybe not. I just keep it going. But maybe the next time I have to do the every 2 years I have to do continuing education courses. It's a pain in the ass. It's like 30 hours of time to do it. And that's even if you like skip, and I just sit there and like skipping on my phone while it's playing. Yeah, it's annoying. But anyway, there's value in having the license. I don't think there's enough value to justify. I have to be buying. You have to make sure you're buying and selling every year, and if you're not, then it's not worth it. So, what are your plans? I guess it could be a cool retirement gig. You could do it part-time. LeVar, hello. Warren, hey, how's it going? Jazz says, I work at a bank as a FA and I want out. So FA means financial analysts, for those who don't know. You wrote in the comment, I own 3 properties, but I don't want to live frugally. How do I get out of this cycle? Yeah, I mean, I talk about it every episode. At the end of every episode of any video I've ever done on YouTube, you'll hear me say, the secret to unlocking a wealth through you is to spend less, earn more, and maximize returns and difference. Now, you've got to find out, as an FA, I don't know what you're making, but probably close to 6 figures, I assume. I don't know how long you've been an FA, but more than likely you're getting close to breaking 6 figures. So your income's probably pretty decent unless you're really young, in which case, hang in there and keep working because you will get a higher income. And as long as you keep your expenses fixed, if you can decide, hey, this is the life that's important to me, and make a list of like 20 things in your budget that are super important to you. Like it might be Netflix is super important. You're like, okay, Netflix is there. It might be going out to fancy restaurants. Okay, is there a way you can go to fancy restaurants every other week? There you go. Maybe you write in there, hey, I want a really nice house. Okay, is there a way you can rent a really nice house affordably? Maybe get a roommate to help cut costs, right? There's ways you can live in luxury for a lot less. And then maybe you got some capital saved up, you start to go down that journey, you check off that housing luxury box, you say, hey, I want to buy something and I just want to own it. I don't care if the math makes sense to rent or own. And you say, hey, how is there a way that I can buy a house and house hack it? Maybe I could, rent out a lower unit or something, or find a way to cash flow it so I can live well and live in luxury for less. That's an option, right, as well. I don't occupy the majority of this, quote unquote mansion that I live in now. Like if you include the carriage house, once I'm done my additions, I haven't done the additions yet that I want to do to connect the garages. I'll have an 8-car garage wrapped around. When you connect that, I'll have over 10,000 building square feet. With the garages, over 10,000 square feet of finished drywalled space. That's a lot of house. But at the same time, I have my mom living with us. I had my dad living with us earlier this year. I have 3 kids currently living with us, a dog, myself, my wife, Jonas. I've lots of people. It's the Godfather to my kids and like my best friend. So he's part of our life. And I may have other people, the guest house is currently, is chilling. I might have other family at some point move in. My grandfather was talking to us about it, and etc. and so forth. But like other friends or family live with, I just like that lifestyle. So it's not so luxurious when you divide it all out, right? And so you could think of it that way. Maybe there's a way you could have your parents live with you. That might be weird, but like maybe you could buy a duplex or something, a super luxury duplex, and then work with them on it, or again, just rent it out could be an option too. I think that it's a big piece of it. You talked about not wanting frugality, but maybe there's a way to live luxuriously for less. Can you go to Groupon? Can you use coupons? Are there ways to get the same thing for less? As an example, like people think things are just fixed, like groceries. You can price match and eat really well for half. You can go and spend $1,000 on food, or you could go use the Flip app, FLIPP, and type in like cauliflower lettuce, type in anything you want. It'll find where it's on sale and you can price match it at Walmart or Superstore. And that'll save you right there if you just buy all like, stuff that's on sale. Everything's on sale somewhere. So you're able to find most of what you need if you're conscious about it, and you can eat for like half. So right there's an example of how you can eat for a lot cheaper. There's promotions all the time for things you can do to, reduce cost. But I mean, if frugality is not important to you, spend a little bit of time on optimizing your budget, find a decent place, like get your housing costs, your housing, transportation, and then food and miscellaneous spending are your typical main three categories where you can trim. There are gonna be other categories you can trim too, but that's a big one. Public mobile is great for cell phones. I pay $30-something a month for 6 gigs of data on the TELUS network, unlimited calling, international text, everything. International calls I can take, no problem. Cell phone plan's $30-something a month. Some people have that exact same plan, no quality difference, and they pay $80 a month, $70 a month. There's lots of little things you can do to have the same quality of life for half the price. You could find a 2-year, like a 5-year-old, BMW or Mercedes that's half the price, and you could find a good deal on it, drive it for 2 years, and sell it for exactly what you bought it for. Driving in luxury and taking your transportation costs, if you, for instance, bought that in cash and sold it in 2 years, and you negotiated your insurance rate and shopped it around, you may have that car and sell it, and it cost you nothing over 2 years. Or you could buy new, drive off the lot, lose $20,000, $30,000 right away, and then have car payments the whole time, and then sell it for a loss, right? So there's lots of ways to car hack, ways to have the exact same thing for less. And that's not really the principles of frugality. That's just value conscious. And I honestly, I've always used the term frugal to mean value conscious. I have certain things I won't, scrimp on, like quality of food. I'm not going to be eating KD and wieners, like Kraft Dinner. I'm not going to be eating Kraft Dinner. This is not me. I want a healthy quality diet. I used to do that on $50 a week. People are like, whoa, Mike, that's so little. Like I spend that in one day eating out at lunch. And I'm like, I didn't eat out at lunch. I would treat myself, sure. I'd go out once a week or every couple of weeks and treat myself. That's okay. You can treat yourself. But that's a big piece of it, right? Is just track what you're spending. And then once you know how you're spending, maybe there's ways you could trim a little bit. And then once you've done that, then you move on to the other categories, which is, hey, can you pick up a side hustle? As an FA, are you working 9 to 6? Can you do anything from 6 to 10? That's important, I think, is to pick up a side hustle. Now you can generate some extra income to cover those luxuries you want in your life, or take that extra income and start saving and then investing that. And that will compound and eventually you won't have to work at all, because the side hustle will either produce as much as your day job did, or at least cover your living expenses, which is the goal. Hopefully you're not spending everything that you earn. If you're in that category, you're living too luxuriously for the income that you make. And so then you got a problem. You got to increase your income, or you got to drop your expenses. That's it. Increase your income or drop your expenses, ideally both. And then maximize the returns in your investment, which is not as important actually as in the beginning, as increasing your income and dropping your expenses. At my point in the game, where I'm, 5 years almost into retirement since I quit my day job, 4 years, 2016 December is when but I didn't really stop till February 2017, I think it was. Yeah. So it's been like coming up on like 5 years. And through that time, in the beginning, frugality was super important. Now my net worth has grown so much because I've been focused on, return on capital, that matters more than anything else. Like literally a 1% difference in the rate of return every year. Like if I make an 8% return or a 9% return, that's more, is that more? Let me do the math on that. Yeah, that's more than I spend in an entire year. A 1% difference in return on my portfolio means more than the entire spending budget. So frugality doesn't even matter to me anymore, because that's not where I spend my time and have impact. If I spend 10 minutes to save $50 on, some food or insurance or whatever, that's a waste of time when I could spend that same time and increase my portfolio, say even 1/4% and have or 1/10% higher return and have a way bigger impact. So it's all about, my time's all about maximizing my money. My money's got to keep working for me. That's the key at the end of the day. Yeah, so that's just the evolution of, as you go through the journey, as you get closer to building up a huge nest egg, it becomes more important what you're investing in. If you got 10 grand, it doesn't matter. Like literally you could put it in anything, a crypto, whatever, like just put it in something. Ideally it's an index fund in the S&P 500, buy VTI, the world index, QQQ, SPY, just buy the general indexes. If the market's in turmoil, that's a great time to buy. That's also a great time to look into the VIX as well. If you're looking at the as a hedge for that volatility, that can be something you look at too. To if you're going to get into options trading, that's when you'd want to. It depends. I don't want to recommend shorting on here because people are just brand new to investing. Shouldn't probably look into shorting. Stay away from shorting. I shorted on Newegg, as you can see on my channel 2.5 months ago, and this is the result. I cannot now shave my face until my portfolio is recovered because I lost so much money. I made a stupid trade. It blew up my entire account. Don't make stupid trades like I did. I now stick to a religious buying schedule. So I cannot have any one position take up more than 2%, 2 to 3% of my entire portfolio. That diversity is key. I no longer short. If I do short, my exposure is capped. And so if I'm shorting, I have a stop loss. So if I'm selling a call, I'm buying a call at a price that stops me out in case the stock gets squeezed. I'm very, very careful now. And I'm very much focused on a long-term buy and hold strategy using options. So as an example, through September, if you watched the S&P, it was terrible through September. I was selling puts through September, put spreads. So I actually made money despite the fact that the index went down. The whole way I made money because I sold it below where it bottomed. So if it had gone down 10%, I would have owned the S&P. It didn't. It only went down like 5-6%. So I just made money for nothing. Even though the market's going down, I was making money. It was already priced in. All I have to do is just have the stock price not fall below my actionable price on my strike price on my contracts. So I love options trading. I think it's a great way for people to generate cash flow if you don't get greedy about it and you stay diversified and you're careful with things. And you can learn from where I've failed. Do not buy individual, do not go all out on individual stocks. You're better off building a nice basket portfolio of many different sectors and companies. Don't YOLO it all on, AMC. Hey Noel, good to see you on. Hey Eric, things are well, thank you. Caught the live, what's up Mike? Not too much, thanks for asking. Next question was, Jazz, keep stacking your dollars as an FA and continue with your properties and continue listening to Mike. He'll show you lots of ways of real estate investing or even stock investing. Thanks, Rex. Appreciate that comment. That was actually a pretty decent point as well. If you're not concerned about the frugality piece, I still think you should look at how much you're spending. There might be ways you get the same lifestyle for less. But once you've done that, I don't know where you are in your journey, but if you've got, again, 3 properties, maybe you've got lots of stock investments too, because you're an FA, it would sound like you would have that kind of stuff too. The secret, I think, to real estate investing effectively and efficiently is buying under market and adding value to it. Now, as an FA, you're probably really busy, so it's more important that your side hustle, if your side hustle sounds like it's real estate, your side hustle is real estate, it's more important to focus on how to use your time as effectively as possible because you're so busy, right? So that means you're probably, as an FA, not going and doing the renovation yourself. You're probably outsourcing that. And that's the right decision because you're a high income earner. You should be spending your time on deal acquisition, on high level, design for the property, high level project management, maybe putting someone in place that's, really knows what they're doing, that can take the project home so you don't have to babysit. And then of course, I think bringing in property management is a smart decision. I think doing it yourself is a terrible idea, especially as you continue to scale past 3. Your time is way more valuable, negotiating with potential sellers, or even refinancing your own properties or selling your own properties. Because I think, by the way, that you should be cycling through your investment portfolio in the same way you do your stock portfolio. If you have a property that now is at a 4 cap rate, you could sell it, and you bought it at an 8 cap rate, you might look at the numbers and say, hey, I could sell this and buy something else. I've often looked at my portfolio and been like, I wouldn't buy anything at market price in my portfolio. At certain points, I've said that to myself. And, I was wrong because the market continued to go up, probably should have held. But it's important to look at your portfolio and to rebalance, right? And to say, hey, this property's not producing any cash flow. I could take that and buy 2 more. Take the capital out of this one and buy 2 more. That's really important in your beginning of your journey. Once you get to my stage, do whatever you want, right? Like, don't do as I do as I say, right? Like, I have often gone and sold a whole bunch of properties for emotional reasons. Bad property management's led to a lot of that decision making. I hate talking to tenants. I hate dealing with toilets and leaks and all that crap. And my manager never picks up. And then they call me or they email me and I have to end up showing them how to shut off the water and dealing with that BS. And I even have a Reliance plumbing protection plan on my properties. So the tenants can just call Reliance and they'll send a plumber for free, pay a monthly fee. And they're still not smart enough to figure that out because they're students. They're like, what do I do? Oh, it's leaking off the floor, man. I'm like, oh my God, go turn the water off in the basement, call Reliance. Oh, I can't figure out Reliance's number. It's on the fridge. Oh no, we threw that out. Okay, I went on the website. Here's Reliance's number. Here you go, call them. This is what you say. Oh, they couldn't figure out how to send a plumber. It's like, give them a script so they can call in and get a plumber to come out and fix the issue. Like, people are retarded, and tenants especially. That stuff infuriates me. But in the beginning of my journey, I did all that kind of stuff, whatever. To make $1,000 a month on a property, I wouldn't mind dealing with that once every few months. Who cares? Now, if I deal with that once, it ruins my entire mood and I just want to sell the property off. But in the beginning of your journey, that's the kind of shit you got to deal with. And that's part of how you build wealth, is going through those hard experiences until you've earned that hardened, exterior, and you've done it for enough time that you can say, hey, now I can hang up the hat. I think real estate's a great asset class to build wealth because you can put the time in. But, I do believe that eventually you want to elevate out of real estate. Like, when you've got 5-10 million, you want to just be in a fund. You don't have individual properties, because then it comes back to you. There's especially the litigation issues in Ontario here with the Residential Tenancy Act. It's just, I don't know. It's just too much. I think dealing with I have a tribunal meeting Monday, actually, for a tenant. Nothing even did wrong. A tenant that left and was upset that another tenant was bothering them. Like, that's wild. And I had to go to that. We sold the property a year and a half ago. I didn't even own the property. I wasn't even on title for the property. I was a minor partner, and I still got served. And I have to go to court for that. I have to waste my whole day waiting for a tribunal meeting. I'm sure nothing will come of it. It's just a waste of my time. They win because the tenant's time is worth nothing, and my time's worth $1,000 an hour. So it's just unfortunate, but that's real estate investing. That's part of that business. And even after you sell, years later, things can come back to you. And so there's a lot of that. Whereas if you own a REIT, a real estate investment trust, nothing comes back on you. You're a shareholder. You get your 8% a year. If the market appreciates, you can lever that up 3 to 1. It's already levered up probably 2 to 1 inside the fund. So if market appreciates 20% in residential real estate in Canada, guess what? If you're levered inside your investor account, it's Interactive Brokers, you can go 3.3 to 1. I wouldn't recommend that, but let's say you went 2 to 1, the market goes up 20%, you can make 80 or 100% return on your money with no stress and cash flow every month. Now, it's not as good of cash flow, but there's no stress. That's why I like REITs. I like the public exposure. I like a diversified portfolio of thousands of units as opposed to having 1 or 2 units where there's a lot of risk. A tenant could flood a unit and you have to deal with that, or a tenant could leave a vacancy, or a tenant could take you to another tenant board just because they have a fight with another tenant, by the way, and they go after you for compensation because they're mad at another tenant and they have no means to go after the 2 tenants, and so they just go after the landlord. It's just a wild process right now. And I bought this property, and 2 weeks after I bought it, I just became the owner. They're mad at the previous property management company of the previous owners, and they took me to the landlord tenant board. They should have been taking the previous owners. It's one of those things where, as a landlord, you open yourself up to those things, and that's okay. Like, I would go through that again if I had to build the wealth that I have now. I don't want to do it now because I've made so much money. I'm too rich for that. But in the beginning stages, to make your first couple million, yeah, you go through all that crap. And I'm here to share how you can do that, right? You can buy properties, put 100,000 in, refinance out your 100 grand, have doubled your money, and then make a consistent cash flow on top of that too. Like, where else can you double your money with almost no risk? I mean, crypto maybe, but the risk level in crypto is so high. It could go up and down. With real estate, it's steady. It's very hard to lose money in real estate. Like, you shit the bed, you buy the worst property, you still are break even after 5-10 years of buy and holding. Like, the buy and hold makes it okay. Whereas crypto, you buy the wrong one, and if it's a small altcoin, or let's say you buy Bitcoin or Ethereum and you're levered up 5 to 1 like you are in real estate, guess what? Your entire investment's gone on a 20% dip. So don't use leverage with crypto, obviously. I am bullish on crypto, but not bullish enough to put half my net worth in or something, right? Like, that's wild. But with real estate, it's a safe place you can put your money and get a great return. You can build a business around it. So I don't know. There's pros and cons to everything, and You know, I look at crypto mining as a superior um, buy and hold business than real estate. So that's just my personal preferences these days. It's easier for me to outsource. I don't know, just it's just better all around. I have to deal with the. I just value my time too highly, and I'm a unique animal. Most people value their time at $20 an hour, $40 an hour, $60 an hour, $100 an hour. Most people, like 99%, make less than $100 an hour, right? So for most people, real estate is a great investment. If I could find a way to make it with good systems, make it actually passive, and produce good cash flow, awesome. I haven't been able to find that. If you truly put in really good property management that like brings in the best plumbers, has a 24/7 call line, that's awesome, that has no vacancy, you're gonna be paying 20 to 30% of your rent in maintenance fees, property management fees, tenant placement fees. It just doesn't, it's actually better just to buy a REIT than to actually make buy and hold real estate passive. You put your time in, you get a great return, or you outsource everything to the high quality guys who do a really good job, and there isn't much cash flow. So that's kind of the conundrum. I think that there was a point in 2020 where I was like, my time is too valuable to deal with this stuff. And that's why I decided I'm still deciding to slowly sell off properties. However, the market is appreciating like crazy. We're up 25% September last year to September now, like from, I guess, October 1st to October 1st. That's wild. Like, it doesn't feel like there's been any appreciation since October. We're in a wild ride through London, you know, after the frothy spring. We had a dip in the summer a little bit in real estate, and it was much cooler. And it's going to keep going, I think. And that's why I haven't sold my properties off. I have like just under 20 properties that I want to sell off, that I'm interested in selling off, you know, near market value. But it's, yeah. Thanks for that, Mike Trotter. Get that teen stash. You don't know the context, right? I can't shave this off until my portfolio is recovered entirely from the short squeeze. So I'm stuck with this teen stash. I'm an adult, and this is all I can grow. I'm just a European that's not that hairy, man. Like, that's just life. Thanks for the positive enforcement. I have no choice. This is all I can grow. If I could grow more, I would. But I can't shave this off. I would love to. It's really annoying, especially at the fringes, like where it's like these sideburns are like an inch long. It's disgusting. Just gross. Oof. Oof. Okay, next question from you guys was, how are you? Seema, I'm good. Thank you for asking. Overall, good. Not as tired as last week. I had a nap before the show, so feeling pretty good. What's the most annoying issues you have with tenants besides them not paying rent? LeVar, I've dealt with everything, man. Like, I've dealt with, you know, tenants trying to fight with other tenants, you know, the domestic violence, having police there. I've dealt with bed bugs and cockroaches. That's the worst. When a tenant brings in bed bugs and cockroaches, I don't want to be racist. Oh, hate that. There's a fly in here. I'm inside the room that I gave my mom. She's got food all here because she works from home. She works at a my mom's disgusting. She should clean this place. I separated her with her own little fridge down here and got her all set up, and she let a fly get in here. It's disgusting. Anyway, that's what you do to help out family. You deal with these things. This is part of why I have an abundance life, is I can have my mom, you know, live with me, and I can take care of her, and I don't have to charge her rent. You know, I'm blessed, so I shouldn't really complain, but it's like my kids when they don't pick up their toys and you step on something. It's just annoying. Anyway, back to what I was talking about there. So issues I've had everything. And the worst is when you have international tenants that think, and I've had tenants, you know, accuse me, like, you're building, you know, this is like a duplex. It's like freshly renovated, so there's no bugs, nothing. Your building has cockroaches and bed bugs. They're coming from the outside. I'm like, it's winter. You're the only tenant in the building. There was none before. There's an infestation now. You are the problem. But they never want to admit that they're the problem, right? Actually, cockroaches, and I was talking to the pest control people, and I learned that cockroaches actually come from the rice in Indian cultures, and in little eggs and stuff in that food. That's just a nature of it. So you got to be really clean if you start, you know, some of those eggs hatch, and there's a disgusting environment for them to flourish in. End up that issue. And bed bugs is as simple as like a city bus or going to a friend's house that has them and bringing them back. They don't come from the outside, by the way. Like, cockroaches and bed bugs do not come from the outside. They're not a building issue until a tenant brings them in. They always come from a tenant. It's a tenant issue, and it becomes a building issue. If it's multifamily, it can spread. You have to really deal with that stuff. So that's been the worst, is dealing with that, especially with students who are not clean, who let it fester and don't say anything for a while until it becomes an issue. That was probably the worst. I think, no, the worst has been when tenants, I had some tenants that were really bad, got into drugs and trashed the whole house. They're going through some issues and they had some friends come over and they had a big party and they trashed everything. So that's a reality too. As a landlord, that kind of stuff happens beyond non-payment of rent. You get those issues with destruction of property. Another one that's really annoying is this happens to the best quality tenants. You pick the really good tenants and they bug you about everything. They're like, hey, the drapes don't open all the way. Can someone come and like put new drapes up? You know what? Like there's a pinhole in the trim over here. I'm worried there's gonna be a draft through the pinhole. Like, can someone come and reinstall this trim? The wall has some irregularities in it. I know it's a 100-year-old house, and I know that the walls are not perfect, but it just really bugs me. Or like, these bulbs are not very bright. Can you just come replace the bulb? They're not bright enough. Like, so many stupid complaints. The window squeaks when it opens up and down. Like, some of their requests are valid, but like most of them are retarded with these high maintenance tenants. That's another one I really hate, is like the super high quality, high maintenance tenant that complains about everything. Like, a truck just went by and it's so loud. I'm like, hey, there's a foot of snow outside. That was probably a snowplow and it's a city road. They're like, well, what can you do about it? Because it woke me up. I'm like, what? I had a tenant message me before, be like, it's raining super heavy. I'm like, yeah, is there a leak? Like, no, it's raining super heavy. I can hear it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you actually wasting my time right now? Because it's raining outside? They're like, it's not insulated very well. I can hear the thunder. You can hear the thunder outside? What? Why are you wasting my time right now? That's people. And sometimes the worst is when the single mom's going through issues and she's texting you about like her boyfriend and just telling you, like, I don't want to hear this stuff, but they have to vent and they vent to their landlord. Like, I can't pay my rent, or I can pay my rent, but it's gonna be 2 days late. And they give you a story about like, and if you don't respond to it, you're an asshole. So you're like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, it's terrible. That kind of stuff. That's the stuff that I never want to deal with ever for any amount of money. Again, there was a time where I would do it for money. You know, I'd do anything for money back in the day. When I was a kid, you give me $2 to bike an hour and a half there and back, I would have done it on a hot summer day. Done. I would have sweated death down there and done it. I would have, got on my bike and just taken care of it. You would tell me to climb in a ravine. I used to get golf balls. I was 9 years old. I had a neighbor who used to enjoy hitting golf balls through poison ivy down into a ravine that was all covered in thorns, and he'd pay me 10 cents, a dime, for every one I went and got. And he'd watch me go down there and get them. I think it was just his enjoyment. Like, don't get me wrong. I love, punishment for money, but no more. No more. That's real estate investing. If you build a big portfolio and you deal with all that, you come across everything. I've had everything happen. I've even been propositioned, to like, she's like, oh, do you think I could pay my rent any other way? I'm like, no, I'm okay. You're like 45. I'm good here. And then she's like, look at this. A picture of my daughter is 22 naked. I'm like, whoa. No, thank you. No, I didn't see that. I don't want to see that. She's like, do you think she's good looking? I'm like, whoa. Like, she's just full naked right there. Like, whoa, I'm good. I'm just freshly married. No, thank you. At the time, like, I've had everything happen just because I've had hundreds of tenants. I've probably had almost 1,000 tenants over the years. And like, I used to help people manage properties too, right? So I used to deal with all that crap on properties that weren't even mine. Like, I managed properties for people. I had one guy I managed property for $50 a month. He's like, I'll pay you $50 a month, you manage the property. Why would I ever take on East London crappy triplex for $50 a month? That's what it worked out to after all my, my gas and all that kind of stuff. So it's just ridiculous stuff that I've done for money. No more. No more of that. Now I value my time way too highly for that. What are your thoughts on real estate wholesale? Well, you're kind of late to the bus, but I did a lot of that. I did a lot of $0 wholesaling. I did 50 deals in 1 year in London. So at the time, I think in 2019, I was the largest wholesaler in London. I wholesaled all my deals for $0 though. The condition was I partnered on them. So I took them out of my name, gave them to people, and I said, just pay me a wholesale fee as a partnership fee later. Basically, I was almost like a capital gain. I thought the treatment would be better for taxes. I did it that way. I had people not pay it. Turns out if you don't get cash up front, a year from now, like, oh, well, this didn't happen and that didn't happen, so I'm just not gonna pay you. It's like, okay. That's the real challenge with $0 assignments. And down that road, people are shit. A lot of people are shit, and that's life. I wished I'd wholesaled everything for cash up front. It's been a lot smarter and maybe a small partnership as opposed to doing no money up front and then wholesaling for a percentage of profit on sale that never ends up coming. They refi it, they don't tell you about it. They max it all out. Oh, there's nothing left on sale. And they give you nothing. And it's very hard if you don't have the security on title. So I've been down all those roads. I've been the naive guy that trusted people. It's been down all that before, and it sucks. Question 1 to GV. If you found a deal, have the financials to do yourself, would you rather leverage? I'm kind of confused by this question. So if you had the money to close it yourself and you have found the deal yourself, you've brought 2/3 of the value of the table. The only thing left to do is management and renovations, if there's any renovations to do, like the people stuff, like on the ground, getting your hands dirty. That's a third maybe at best. Unless it's a huge renovation project, then maybe it's a half. It's definitely, I wouldn't do JV partnership, but I know people who've done it and had success with it. You've got to be, if you're going to JV partner, I think the best way to do it is to make sure you have it registered on title, then you're safe. JV properly with registration on title as a second mortgage or putting yourself on title in some way, and then you're protected. Then it's okay to JV. But JV can lead to conflict, lead to issues. So generally, unless you JV really well with good contracts set up and register on title, I would say stay away from JV. It also adds layers of complexity. Like you now have a partner to be accountable to. Some people that helps them. Some people like to be accountable to someone. I personally have found that wasn't great. Just wasted my time. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's always someone who's hating, right? There's always a hater. It's just life. It's okay. You know how you deal with haters? You just smile and continue to succeed in life. More and more good keeps happening in my life. I continue to keep rising up. Those people who are, staying steady, who are the haters. I mean, no one's hating me and disliking me who's above me, who's at the next stage, who's wealthier than me, has more success than me. Those people don't have time to be hating. It's only the losers that are watching and wishing they had what you had or whatever. It's always the losers that are, and even the communists and socialists, most of them come from nothing. If you divide up socioeconomic status, you can pretty much tell how someone's going to vote just based on how they grew up, their current caste system, and their current income. You can correlate almost exactly. If you grew up poor on not doing well in this current system, it's just we're sort of capitalist. We're barely capitalist. Government intervenes all the time. This is far from a free market. But anyway, we're sort of center-ish capitalist. Then if you grew up and didn't do well in that system, you're suffering right now, you're going to vote left. Because guess what? That means take money from people who are succeeding in the system and give it to you, who's failing in the system, right? So you can just draw a line who votes NDP and who votes, more left-leaning and more right-leaning based on their current circumstance. Like, it's interesting. People vote for what's good for them and their family. Almost always. Almost always. For instance, I know some people who are, economically right-wing, but they're gay. And they're like, hey, the right wing doesn't support me, so I'm always going to go left. And I'm like, I get it. You're doing what's good for you selfishly, but it's not what's good for the economy. But anyway, I don't get into politics, but you can pretty much easily tell how someone's going to vote based on their current socioeconomic status and how they grew up. Because there are people who are successful now who grew up poor, and some of them are still leftists because that's their family mindset and it's just kind of how they grew up. But yeah. Hey Mike, do you know if Interactive Brokers offers margin and margin account, but against TFSA stocks? I don't know that. I do know that Interactive Brokers has margin, and I use it religiously. I love margin. I don't use too much, but I like using cheap debt to buy things. Yeah, that's right. D. Thomas says, when you get really rich, you stop voting, you just lobby. That's right. In a current capitalist system, if you're rich, you're in God mode. Like, you can have the impact of tens of thousands of votes, right? That's cool. If you're poor, you have no control, no impact. So that's why in this system, you might as well follow financial independence and make yourself wealthy so you can enjoy the best life you can in the current system. I don't believe we're going to change the system in our lifetime. It just is what it is. And if it does change here, I'll go somewhere else with my money and live like a king. I'll go to Costa Rica, or I'll go to, Brazil or Cayman Islands or wherever. There's tons of countries you can go where you'll be treated best. And I don't know. I think if I had to choose between being poor and being rich, I'd be rich. Always. I think if there's a way that you can sculpt your life to free up your time, that's the win. Do what you want to do with your life. Love what you do. That's the most important thing. Like, don't slave at a job you hate just for the sake of getting rich. If you get to enough, whatever your enough point is, to me, that's when your passive income from your investments covers all of your living expenses. Should take less than 10 years to accumulate that if you save about half of what you earn. Less if you get into a good investment vehicle like crypto early on or real estate before a boom, or you work really hard at side hustles. You can get there faster than 10 years, but it takes some people 25 years, but that's because they do a super watered down version where they don't save, they don't invest well. So don't be that person. I have to go. I have to do my kids' bedtime. So yeah, these stories are crazy. That's just life. You're more like a social worker than a landlord sometimes. How's mining going? Good. It's going good. What's your process? Just like contract to sell in your portfolio? Do you have specific metrics or watch list? Yeah, so I watch list. I have certain price points where typically when stuff's oversold, when there's a lot of depressing news, that's when I want to sell puts. And stuff that I'm already holding that I've been assigned, I'm going to sell calls whenever there's an update. So I wait typically for when the market is, you can look at the VIX as an example, to see when the market's, fearful, or when the market's got like, it's bullhorns on, right? And it's raging higher. On the days where it's raging higher, that's when you want to sell calls, ideally covered calls on your existing portfolio that you've been assigned. You run the wheel, you get them called away, and you make a profit for having held those shares. And you made a profit when you sold a put, when you agreed to get those shares in the first place. So that's how I do it. I like to stay 10% out of the money at least. So if stock's trading $100, I like to sell puts, say 2 months out with a strike price of at most 90 if it's at a price of 100. But I typically look in the last 60 days, I look in the last year, and I'll say, what was the low in the last 60 days? Like, what was the worst the stock was? I want to be below that because I want to see the stock break new lows before I get assigned shares. And if it does break new lows and I get assigned, that's okay. I'd rather buy it in a down cycle than buy it on the up cycle, right? So that's just been my strategy. Who knows if I'll beat the market long term? Excluding the one trade that went bad with Newegg, and I've done right now 3,000 trades, and one of 3,000 blew up my whole account. But if you exclude that one trade, which is unfair, you shouldn't do it. I've almost recovered in the last 2.5 months from that bad trade, which is a lot, by the way. I had to grow 15% a month to come back from that. Not sustainable. I target, 2 to 3% a month. That is beating the market. I'm ahead of the S&P 500 considerably if you just remove that Newegg trade. But again, you can't remove the one trade. You have to look at the whole portfolio. We'll see over several years. I'll continue to report if I beat the index or not. I like the fact that I can get a favorable tax treatment in options trading. It's an active business. I get to write things off against it. It's on my corp, as opposed to just buying and holding. But I see the merits of buy and hold too. It's okay just to own the market. There's nothing wrong with that. To own different, many different sectors, just ride the market. There's nothing wrong with that either. Especially at my stage in the game, that's more than enough. And yes, I have watch lists for companies as well. Thank you for asking. Did I miss any more questions here? W, nice to see you on as well. Do you fast a lot? Yes, I fast every single day, 16 hours. So I only have an 8-hour eating window. For the last 2 years, I've subscribed to that. When I used to work, I did the same thing. So I would eat in the evening typically, and then I wouldn't eat again until the late dinner time. So I never have breakfast, never have lunch, and eat in the evening. My body gets used to that blood sugar routine, and I don't waste any time when I'm in my productive time because I don't eat breakfast and I don't eat lunch, and I'm clear. I don't get the after breakfast blues. I don't get the after lunch slug. We're slow. I'm clean. I'm clear. I feel good. My body's used to regulating that energy, and it's super healthy. I don't go to the gym ever, never. And you guys aren't able to see this, but this is always I'm always rock hard, and that's just eating, diet. I do nothing, no push-ups right now, nothing. That's just eating clean and fasting. Fasting is the best thing for my body. I feel really good about it. It's hardest to do fasting when you're sick. That part sucks. I sometimes take it down to a 14 or 15 hour fast when I'm sick because I need to be pumping more vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, that kind of stuff. Right now I'm full on sick. You can hear in my voice, obviously, that I'm sick. My daughter, who is also sick, I fought it off for a week. I was washing my hands religiously, and then just in the last night, I was reading my daughter a bedtime story, and she coughed in my mouth. And I felt the droplets hit my mouth, and I went to try to wash my mouth out after, but it was too late. I felt the globs hit me. I knew I was infected, and then I didn't have good sleep, and I got infected. And it's not the one that's gonna ruin my life. Even if it was, I wouldn't be worried. Everyone's worrying about that. I don't want to say it, but the VID 19, because I want YouTube to censor me and turn my channel off like they're doing to other people who mention those words or have any political ideals that don't align to theirs. Yeah, I mean, even if I had it, whoopee-doo, now I have 9 months of immunity. It's better than getting the second shot. I have a better immunity and it lasts longer. Yeah, Jacob, I didn't mean it like that. I did not mean rock hard like that. I'm not always rock hard like that. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, I can see how that would be taken and misconstrued. How do I find balance? I struggle. I've always struggled. I'm all or none, and I just try to take breaks and spend time with family. My mindset's just that way. No margin in TFSA anywhere. That's not true. In private banking, you can get margin on the TFSA. There are ways you can get margin on your TFSA, but most brokerages don't allow margin within the TFSA. I think Interactive Brokerage doesn't let it happen, but in private banking, you can. I know that sounds weird, but at Scotia, they allow it inside the portfolio. Even though it's supposedly illegal, and their bank told me it was illegal, so I don't know. How do you inflate rent above guidelines? It's tough, Joe. You would have to get consent from the tenant, that's it, or do major improvements to the property. That's it. Yeah, I'm bullish on Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'm gonna wrap this up here. Did I miss any other questions? I want to get a high-paying job as a trades or realtor. What do you suggest the fastest ROI from either profession? Trades, I think trades are a great way to build connections and build experience, and it's great in the start of the journey to build valuable experience if you want to go into real estate. But realtor will give you better connections long-term to more high-value people and high-value skills. As a contractor, your best case is like 60, 70 grand a year. But as a realtor, if you were to take those skills and apply them to the right people, you could potentially start partnering up on properties with people and get into multi-millions a lot faster. I think the realtor way, depending on the type of person you are, I think realtor is the faster, better way to building wealth, but depends on the type of person you are. There's no reason you couldn't do both. There's no reason you couldn't get the realtor license and do trades and have a full-time job going and side hustle with real estate until you start picking up more clients, start building a brand, and start doing deals, in which case you might scale back the construction work to part-time. Once you're skilled, you can work on your own as a tradesperson. That's the great thing. So I wish at 17, I would have went into the trades. I wish I didn't go to Western, go to Ivy. Someone asked a question about university degrees. I graduated top quarter of my class, and it doesn't matter. No one cares. I didn't get a special job because of it. The job I got was kind of like average out of school. If I wanted a good high-paying job, it wasn't going to be in London. It was going to be in Toronto or New York, and I didn't want to move. I wanted to be in London. I wanted to do the real estate thing. So I just found a job, and that was sort of how I built the way of doing it. But if I had, instead of spending those 4 years in school, if I had spent 4 years grinding and had made, say, 40 or 50 grand a year in the trades, working 60 hours a week, I'd be a skilled professional at the end of the 4 years. I'd be able to still get properties. I'd still be, making tons of money. And in those 4 years, that would be 250 grand I would have made, 60, 55 grand a year. That's huge, right? Like, I have 250 grand I can invest. If I didn't even look at that, in 20 years, that's millions of dollars if it compounds over time. So I think university is a waste these days. I recommend my kids not to go to university or college. If they want to, I'll support them in it. They can do what they want. They are lucky enough to grow up with a dad who has lots of means. They can, take their time. You do whatever they love. I didn't grow up with that luxury. If you grew up not rich with a silver spoon in your mouth, then I think the trades is a better way to go to building wealth faster. And then do the real estate stuff and the realtor stuff on the side. That's my recommendation. Ooh, we got a super chat, $50. Thank you, sweet. Tips on cutting frivolous expenses. So there's tons of that I talked about earlier in the episode. If you go back, you'll hear examples of that. But this will be the last question for tonight. Because you super chatted, I'll answer it. I'll stay on for a minute. So, by the way, thank you for supporting the channel. As you know, there's no ads at all in these videos, so I make zero from this, nothing. I don't make any videos, so YouTube's now become a non-income producer, which is fine. It was never the goal to make money from it. So, okay, so ways to cut expenses. Your first one's rent. Like, if you can find a way to get a roommate or to find a place that's, and by the way, not all places are for rent at the same price. So you can find a 3-bedroom house in London right now, detached house with an unfinished basement for $1,400 a month. I found one on there. It was $1,400 a month plus tax. And you could live in the basement and rent the 3 rooms upstairs and just put up like an IKEA bookshelf to create some privacy for yourself. If the basement's unfinished, you can put like bookshelves on all the walls and rugs up. I know people who do that, and they get like just basically nice rugs they put down. It feels like a finished space. Some cool lights and stuff. Boom, now you're living in the whole basement. You got 3 rooms upstairs at $600 a room, $1,800 a month. You're making $400 a month to live for free in a detached house. That's an example. And I know another person who just rented a 2-bedroom piece of crap property in East London in a terrible area for like $1,500 a month. It's all about choices. Bad choices and good choices. That's on the renting scenario. You can also buy smart too. You can buy houses that have those opportunities and live for free and build equity in the house and grow your net worth for free and live for free. That's huge. Where you can't do that if you are not smart about it. So housing expenses are the biggest one you got to get under control. Get that to near zero. There's lots of ways to rent hack. I had a free guide I used to give away. It was like an ebook. I probably should give that away again if I could find it. And it's like a 4 or 5 page checklist on how to rent hack. There's also house hacking, which is living in a duplex and renting another unit out, or fix a house up so that it can squeeze an extra unit in. After housing, there's transportation, which I talked about, buying a used car in the right area of the depreciation curve so that you can own it for 2 years and then sell it for exactly what you bought it for. Therefore, your car costs you nothing because you can buy it in cash. You can buy a nice, even if you had to drive a luxury car, like you had to drive like a Lexus or a Mercedes, you can find a 5, 6, 7-year-old used, still in great condition if you looked hard enough, for a used, Mercedes or whatever, or BMW or whatever you like. And then at the end of a year or two, you can car hack and sell it for what you bought it for, and your car costs are zero, just your insurance and your gas, which are frivolous and not much. You can get those cut down quite a bit. Especially the miscellaneous spending is a huge one. It's easy. Just make sure everything you buy, you don't buy it then, you hold it in your cart for 72 hours and think about it. Is that thing going to add value to your life? And after 3 days of thinking about it, you come back to it, you're like, oh, actually I don't need that thing. I'll be okay without it. Another way to look at it is like, hey, if this thing's $500 and you make after tax $25 an hour, hey, is this worth, 20 hours of my time? Is this worth half a week of my life being a slave for this one thing? And if it is, buy it. Okay, cool. And if you're gonna buy something, buy quality. Buy a good quality version of that thing used. That's been my, almost always, if I need a laptop, I go buy an Alienware laptop, $3,000 laptop on Kijiji for $900. And in 3 years, I sell the laptop for $900 and buy another one. It cost me zero for the laptop for the 3 years that I owned it. I do that with a lot of things that I buy, my cars, my laptop, my phones. I've continued to buy and sell phones. Every couple of years, I buy another phone for almost nothing. And then I sell it for close to what I bought it for. Keep the depreciation at a minimum and everything you buy quality so it lasts and you can sell it. And there's a good resale market for that item. Quality is the key though. You buy cheap, but it's garbage that gets thrown away. It's a misbelief. People think that, if you buy cheap stuff, that's the way to be frugal. No. The frugal person buys high quality, expensive stuff that retains its value. That's the key to keeping your expenses down. It might be a high outlay at first, but at least you can sell it at any time for near what you bought it for. So buy quality, always. It lasts better. You have better experience in general with a quality item, and it has a resale value at the end, whereas the cheap thing breaks and it's garbage. Don't buy cheap. Buy quality. That's been my recommendation in general. And always price match, price shop, look and see where things are, on sale, what's best, and spend a little bit of time. You can do well. Are you still actively buying puts to cover the downside? Any concern your end regarding big market downturn and massive inflation? I think there are better ways than buying puts. I think you could. You could buy puts, I guess, to downside. You could also, do just sell calls with spreads on it. So you're going to define loss. I do some of that a little bit. You've definitely got to define your loss. And with the puts, you got to make sure you're selling them before they expire. Or you're going to go bankrupt. It's just the cost of maintaining those in a bull market, right? VIX is the other one to watch. Right? You can play that as well for the volatility. I gotta go. I promised that I would go. It's been a whole hour. I really appreciated all of you guys, and thank you so much for the super chat. That's really awesome. I really appreciate it. So thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next week. Remember, the secret to unlocking a wealthier you is to spend less, earn more, and maximize returns on the difference. And as always, I'm accessible. You can watch my stories on Instagram. @Mike Rosehart is my handle. I'll see y'all on there, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.